And he looks at me and he goes, I am invincible. And I said, well, I'm not. Can we slow down?
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Savage Podcast, episode number 3. And today we've got someone very special, someone I'm sure you've seen, and that's Ed Bolian. So thank you for having
snake.
us. Yeah.
Welcome.
Dude, that snake, could you just tell me a little bit about that snake? What's the story behind that?
This is our pet boa constrictor, Sunny the Lamboa. She's about 10 years old, and she's, give or take, 9 feet long, about 30 pounds, eats frozen rats, and loves to be on the internet.
The first time you did a VINWiki story with that, I mentioned it to you off camera already, but I genuinely thought that wasn't a real snake. Just because I didn't see it move too much, I'm like, wait, is it real? And then I saw the head twitch and the tongue come out, and I was like, no, that's real.
It is, yes. She's a real snake. It's an albino sunglow red-tailed boa constrictor. Wow. And yeah, she's wonderful. So, I mean, we've got young kids. They'll just pass her around to all their friends, take pictures and stuff like that. So she's been a great pet.
And maybe it's a dumb question, but are they venomous? Do they? No, they're not.
Nope, non-venomous. So if she were to bite you, and she's never done anything aggressive, it wouldn't be a big deal. They squeeze things, so sometimes she'll squeeze holding on, but not out of any aggression. But so they're really, really great. She eats once a month. You can leave her for a few weeks at a time. She doesn't mind. It's the perfect pet, really.
Wow, I never once thought about snakes as pets. You
cat, mentioned
dog,
snake, and I was like, I need to see it. I
appreciate the excitement.
Yeah, I wanted a snake as a kid, but my mom said, "Oh, we have to feed it rats. Never mind."
Well, now you have the opportunity to do adult things like live pet reptiles.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of different things we could talk about, man. But one of the things that I think we could both, just shoot the shit on is Murcielagos.
Absolutely.
But before we even talk about that, man. So what's in the VINWiki fleet now? Because I pulled up here, and I'm not going to spoil anything for Car Trek, but I saw 3 identical vehicles that I assume are for a new episode of Car Trek. But
that is an outcropping of a Car Trek project, but we built a cheap off-roading Cayenne, and it was wonderful in every way except being quite slow. And so we've been experimenting with our sponsor, Sway, on how to build the ultimate Porsche Cayenne.
Oh, okay.
And so we've got a few different iterations in the driveway right now. It looks like Jurassic Park, even inside sometimes. But it's, I love Murcielagos. I know you do as well. So right now I have 3 of them. I've got the highest mileage manual LP640 Coupe, the highest mileage manual LP640 Roadster, and a horrifically crashed and very nicely repaired SV.
Yeah. Now, and you got to tell me the story on the red, because I remember when you got the red one. I saw it on your Instagram, and you posted the photo with all 3 of them together and whatnot. What's the story behind that? And of course, everyone check out the VINWiki episode on it. But for those listening right now that have no scope of it, it's a really beautiful red SV. How did it get here? Because wasn't it from China or? It wasn't from here.
No, we tried to buy a different one that was smuggled from Canada into China, and
of course.
Didn't work all that well. Oh. But this one was a U.S. car that was sold by Prestige Imports, Lamborghini Miami, when it was new back in 2009-10. And it was crashed in 2016, front-end collision, airbags out, everything. And it sold through Copart, and it got pretty stripped in Copart. So, the whole interior was taken out of it, and it sold into Europe. That's all that I really knew. And, through the VINWiki app and through the research that I did while working at Lamborghini Atlanta, we tried to keep track of where they were and what they were doing. And, I was always looking for clues as to where it might have ended up, because I love buying the worst example of a really cool car.
Absolutely.
And it's just the best way in. And so, the SVs in general were starting to get out of my budget by all means, and so the idea of one with a terrible past, always a good idea. And so this one popped up for sale, and the dealer in Germany that was selling it after it had been repaired in Hungary messaged me, because the records on VINWiki showed the car as being number 240 out of 350 rather than it's now shown as 257.
Oh, okay.
So apparently when they were ordering all the parts to replace the interior bits, they ordered the plaque, and the factory doesn't have records on which numbers they put on. It was pretty random. And so, it wasn't on the window sticker or anywhere else. And so they, I guess, guessed. And 257's a black car in Miami. And so he was asking for me to clarify that. But then I learned, all right, well, U.S. cars don't sell well in Europe. Crashed cars don't sell well in Europe. But a car that has been registered in Germany has gone through a pretty proper inspection. And so he said it was for sale. It was a good price. And I had just sold 9 cars because I'd accumulated a ton of cars through 2021 for Car Trek stuff and things like that. And in speaking to the guys at Bugatti, I'd always wanted a Bugatti of some sort. It's just, always been kind of the goal since I got my real dream car, which was a manual transmission LP640. So they have 8 Chiron development mules. Wow. And they all have like 60 to 80,000 miles.
Jeez.
And they were in the process of retiring them. And this was right around the time where Mate Rimek was taking over Bugatti.
Okay.
And so they're like, I think we could probably sell you one. They're terribly rough. They're beat. They have like mismatched body panels and stuff like that. But they tried out different things, and they were just the road test cars.
Who cares? Wrap it, paint it.
Yeah.
I was like, this sounds perfect. And so I literally knew that if I was going to buy it, I would have to do so super fast.
Right.
And so I made an Instagram post, and I said, everything is for sale.
Yeah.
And I put a price on everything. Honestly, I was only planning to keep one of the manual LP640s because I had already gotten the Roadster, and that was a whole different spray paint story for another day.
Yeah.
But I was going to only sell one of those, but everything else was to go. So I ended up selling 9 of the cars in a week. And then once Mate Rimek took over, he said, no, we're not going to let these out the door, not looking like presentable. So they wanted to fully rebuild them as brand new cars, and the price was going to double.
Oh, jeez.
So I had liquidated like the Paris Hilton SLR and the 599 from Car Trek, and so I had just about enough money to pay for this thing, but I had never bought a car that big in Europe. Importing a car isn't that complicated, but the problem is when you do a vehicle transaction, you've got the title, you've got the money, and you have the car.
Yeah.
And the best way to protect yourself is just make sure that the other party doesn't have all 3.
Right. Understood.
Well, if you're buying a car in Europe, they're going to have all 3 for a long, long time.
Wow.
And so it was. I was pretty nervous, but the guy came well recommended. He'd done some business with John Tamarian down at Curated and people that I knew, and so. I was able to breathe a little bit easier. And so the car came in, and I had no idea what it was going to be. We had to fly it in because at the time it was taking like 6 months to boat in a car. And fortunately, there was a spot like 2 weeks later on a plane. It was a little cheaper than it would normally have been, but still, shipping everything is crazy.
What does it cost to ship something
Just about
by
to
air?
ask.
I mean,
It's
I've heard
highly
this.
variable. It was always 10 grand extra when we were at the dealership. So you could air freight your car in, which very few people did, except for the ones that were financing Aventadors.
Understood.
Because early on, your payment on an Aventador Roadster, if you were financing it for 60 months, would have been like, $8,000 or $9,000 a month.
Yeah.
So paying an extra 10 to get your car a month earlier suddenly makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it literally was a difference of like you get it in a week after completion versus 5 to 6 weeks as it would take to get to the Port of Baltimore and then ship to the dealer. And so it went up a lot. And so it was 23 to fly mine, but the alternative was like 15 on a boat, which normally boat shipping is like $5,000.
Yeah. So $7 grand difference basically to get it.
So it was an easy decision there. Now in the subsequent, so this would have been late in 2021. Throughout 2022, shipping prices went crazy.
Oh yeah, gas went. It was unbelievable.
Exactly. So it got up to be 70, 80. Wow. If you were flying a car out of Japan, $100,000 to $150,000 bucks.
Oh my God.
But there are some of these cars that like you can't roll on, roll off.
Right.
A 7-figure car. And so this worked out beautifully. They flew it right here into Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
Went down. You're not supposed to drive it away. Of course, that's exactly what I did. And it's been a great car. So to me, obviously, you don't need all these Mercies, but I kept telling other friends, they'd always call me, say, Ed, are there any good cars that I should buy? And they kept buying these cars, and I would watch them triple in value. And I'm like, I'm missing out. So I decided these I would just try to keep. Because 20 years from now, it'll look like some guy that's got a 300 SL Roadster, a 300 SL Gullwing, and a 300 SLR in his garage. It feels perfect.
Every time I've ever been asked about Murcielagos or any car of like that era, in terms of like, is this a good idea to buy? And I don't just mean from a driving standpoint. Like I love the way that a lot of those cars drive. I love the way my Murcielago drove. But I look at those cars, and anytime people have asked me, I say the same thing. It's just like those cars are never going anywhere but up. in terms of value. They're never going to get any cheaper because they'll never make a car like that again. Yeah. They're not going to have a even if they do a naturally aspirated V12, if one sensor fails, that's going to be a $3,500 part, and if it's never going to not be an unbelievable expenditure. But you know what? With that, should Lamboa go back to her place or?
Yeah, I guess so. She's getting a little fidgety. So
okay,
there we go. We'll just
seamless transition.
That's it.
So, what was the dawn of Car Trek?
Yeah.
How did that get started?
So, it really all came out of the Pimp My Ride van that Freddie did. Yeah. So he had brought it here on the way to giving it to Tyler as a Christmas present at the end of 2019.
How special.
Exactly. Yeah, just what everybody wants under the tree. And he showed up and he wanted my thoughts on it. And we were literally sitting outside by my fire and just talking about ideas of content. And we had never seen in the history of automotive YouTube a series be as successful as his 3-part build of that van.
I remember seeing that it was either number 2 or 3. I remember seeing it on trending every episode. It was insane.
Number 1 on trending, 8 million views or so per episode. And it was just incredible that this $1,500 van could do so well. I mean, these are cable television numbers. And so we were talking and I asked him, I said, why can't we just do like a Top Gear cheap car contest? Because if you ask us what we would like to do, given really just carte blanche to go play however we want to, of course we want to go play Top Gear. And he's like, oh, it's too complicated. And I said, I think we could probably figure out a way to pull it off. And this was right around the time where they had announced the C8 Corvette, and it was going to be a $59,999 car.
That was everyone's headline. I remember, can it beat the Corvette?
Exactly.
Like the memes.
And so we were like, what could we buy for that? Because we're not new car buying people. We buy terrible, broken exotic cars. So this was as on brand for all of us. And he was headed to Tyler's house, and I had just sold Tyler the orange Mercy Roadster. And so, it was all kind of in the family, and it seemed like the perfect way to try it. And when you look at how Top Gear developed into what we love, it took them about 10 seasons to learn the personalities, to learn the chemistry, to really build what it became.
Yeah.
We had the benefit that people on the internet had spent hundreds of hours hearing our stories and seeing our activities and all the things that we'd been on and the adventures that we'd had. And so they already kind of knew that Freddie believes he can fix anything and he's right 20% of the time. And Tyler makes the dumb decisions so we don't have to. And I go out, trying to shrewdly negotiate my way into some terrible car, and it goes really badly, but I still have a great time. And so we could already let the audience kind of in on what it would look like for those 3 ideas to come together. And I feel like as we have the attention of an internet audience that lets us grow and lets us have the ability to, experiment with new things, we owe it to them as stewards of their attention.
I 100% agree.
To up the ante from a quality perspective, and that's what it was.
Yeah, I always said like opportunity and obligation. That's something I've always tried to live by. And when I saw Car Trek come out, I was just like, wow. Like, you want to talk about like just raising the bar in terms of what people expect for automotive YouTube. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
And it's as much fun as it looks like. And so now we've done 10 of them. And we don't really know what the next one's going to be. We've talked about different premises. And the 2 sponsors that have supported it, Auto Tempest and the Ticket Clinic, have been amazing to work with. And they kind of felt the same way. Like, they had been so much a part of the journey of VINWiki and Hoovie's Garage and the Tavarish channel that they were like, all right, well, how can we do something that's bigger and crazier? And so they've been very, very pleased with it. And then to have the Ticket Clinic along as well has been great. And so, we don't know where it's going to go. We've talked to Netflix and everybody else about it. But the problem is then, you lose so much in terms of control and inefficiency. Because the thing is, and you know this as well as anybody, somebody who comes out of a professional videography background will struggle on YouTube.
Absolutely. Very much so. Myself included.
Yeah, because you think, all right, I have this skill set. I have this set of equipment. I can do this. This is the product I'm capable of creating. And you want to redo that. YouTube is output driven. So if you have to release a video a week, 3 videos a week, 5 videos a week, the input that you can offer has to be based on what you have to put out, not how good you are at doing it.
Absolutely.
And so in these kind of cases, we wanted to make sure that we could, transform the way we could approach that. Because this is not something we can do every week. As much as people are like, why can't Car Trek have his own channel? It can't have his own channel because we can only make 12, 15 episodes a year.
And also that kind of wears out kind of some of the charm too. You know, a lot of things, you know, for a long time, they're really, really good. But you get to a point where you go, what else is there left to do? I mean, we've done everything. And, you know, it's a very hard thing sometimes once you've done a show or a series for a long period of time to keep evolving and also make that work from a business standpoint. So that's something I've always looked at with Car Trek. And I've said to myself, like, it's really impressive that you've been able to keep the production level where it is and continuously release, you know, new episodes, new seasons. With Car Trek being said, what are some of your favorite moments from doing it? Or like, better yet, like, what are some of the favorite cars?
I'll tell you, the first one, the manual Gallardo Spider.
That was pretty.
It was a flood car that had been in a proper like mudslide flood, not a saltwater flood, but I mean, the door panels were full of mud. The whole evaporative system was full of mud. We started to have issues with a four-wheel drive error, and then we dumped the diff fluid, and it was water. And so it was really, really awesome. And so all of the moments there, but really at the point that we got to Amelia Island, to the Concord, which was our destination there, feeling like we had probably done it, and we still hadn't seen any of the footage. We had no idea if it was going to come together from a storyline perspective, but just like that dream had sort of been realized was incredible. You know, we got to drive a McLaren F1 for a few hours of all crazy things.
Check.
Exactly. I got to race a fighter jet in a 765 LT on a runway to 205 miles an hour.
How the heck did you organize that? I saw the clip of that from like one of the intro sequences. I'm like, who does he know? Who does he know? Because like I imagine, you know, the fuel for that costs a lot of money, getting to shut down the runway. How did that come to be?
So I sold a couple of cars, a Gallardo Spider and a 430 Coupe, to a guy who runs air show events where you can go out between flying events and you can pay to drive one of these cars as fast as you want to on an airstrip.
Awesome.
And, it's called Precision Exotics, and they go to air shows all over the country. And he had mentioned a few things over the years of like, hey, we're going to do this weird stunt with this plane, like a biplane's going to fly upside down over a car. Do you want to come out and do it? And it just never really worked. But at the end of Car Trek 5, we kind of needed a little bit more for the last episode. And so we will sometimes write in different outro options. Like we could go to listing the cars for sale. We could go to, you know, just sail off into the sunset, or somebody could win something. And so the Car Trek 5 was who had done the best job, I suppose, of buying their dream car. And that's sort of my superpower is, you know, before you're able to afford something and just use your good credit, you know, find a way to have a really, really awesome car. And so I won the series in my manual LP640. And the last episode, we did 5 episodes, I think, for that one. And it just was a little light. And so we decided, well, this would be the perfect way to kind of book into, since we'd started with the F1. And so he had this guy, Randy Ball, who's a, you know, like I think he's the highest, I don't know how they rate precision pilots, but he's allowed to do things that the FAA prefers nobody ever do.
I see, yes.
And so they do this as a stunt periodically, but they were planning to do it at an air show in Louisiana. And so he's like, hey, you can come out and do it. And we honestly didn't commit early enough for me to be able to do it in the LP640. So a friend of his had brought a 765 LT, and he was fine with me driving it. And so we went out, and literally, I mean, the car's so fast. I mean, you've been out in 720s and all these, they're so fast. And so it literally would sit at the top speed of 205 miles an hour for, you know, most of the 2-mile runway.
Jeez.
And then the goal was for us to like pass show center at the same moment, so we have the coolest shot for the audience to see. And we did a pretty good job of pulling it off with really far less practice than one ought to have, given the fact that there's 40 feet of flames coming out of a plane that's 30 feet off my bumper.
Oh yeah, I mean, every now and then over the years of filming content, there's been many moments where I've said to myself, we shouldn't have been able to get away with that, or that just worked out way too perfectly for what it was. That was way too big of a coincidence. And that was always my way of feeling, well, I guess it was just meant to be then. I guess it was just supposed to happen.
Alternate description, it just wasn't your time to die yet.
There we go. Exactly.
That's a good one.
But so that's the story on the jet fuel thing. So and you were just talking about the your favorite car from there, the Gallardo. Any other ones that stand out to you, or like any interesting fates of some of them?
That's a good question. So the Drug Lord Vanquish, Freddie begged me to buy while we were shooting Car Trek 2. He kept it for a little while, of course, thought he was going to manual swap and do all these things that never happened. And so he ended up selling it to Tyler. So so we've all owned that 03 Vanquish.
It's the village bicycle.
We destroyed all the cars in 3 at the castle. 4 was the Ferraris. I sold the 599 that was a flood car to a local guy, and he drives it, loves it. I've tried to buy it back a couple of times, and it's just, it's amazing. 6, we had all 3 cars. So the David Lockhart, good friend of yours, bought my Cayenne. That was probably the sketchiest thing we ever did. Is we drove up this mountain in Breckenridge, Colorado, that you're kind of allowed to drive up, but it's not really like a trail. And we happened to do it on the first snow of the season. Like it wasn't snowing when we started, and it was 0 visibility when we got to the top.
Ideal. Yes.
Yeah, and Freddie was in a Montero on street tires that were 15 years old. Tyler was in a soft top Wrangler, and the Cayenne was bulletproof. I mean, it couldn't have done any better. But they literally thought that we were going to die, and we hadn't told anybody that we were going up. There wasn't like we didn't have enough food or thick jackets or anything you should have, and so we barely got out of that one, but we survived it. And so I sold the TVR to a guy near Tampa. I sold the Bentley from Car Trek 8. The gas guzzlers for the price of a Tesla. That was a 180,000 mile Super Sport. It was wonderful. But I knew I would have kept it, but I'm like, one day this is going to bite hard.
Wait. 180,000 mile Super Sport?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. What kind of upkeep was in doing 180,000 miles in a Veyron?
I bought it for not a Veyron, Bentley Continental.
Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry.
Sport.
I was about to say, hold on a sec. Oh, a Super Sport
If
Bentley.
there were 180,000 mile Bentleys or
it would be
Bugatti
probably
Super
sitting in your
Sports, it would
driveway
be
right
here
now.
for sure, and I would
I was
never
about to
part
say,
with it.
how'd you let that go?
That is a Ed Bolian. Only if it had a branded title, obviously.
Oh, it'd be incredible.
If we could get a lemon law one that somebody, that'd be great. No, it was a Bentley Super Sport. I paid $43,000 for it at a dealer, a CarMax auction in California, and it was. We wrapped it in like bright green, and it's in Savannah now. I just traded the Car Trek 9 Audi on a GTC4 Lusso. As you know, the people ask all the time, is the car market falling apart right now? And there are certainly cars like Aventadors and 720s and Huracans that are massively depreciating over the course of the last 90 days. And they can't really find a bottom because they're just not there yet.
Yeah.
And so like a 2017 R8 V10 Plus, which is what we bought as like a best alternative to a Z06, a new Z06. That was not an easy car to sell, so I found an aged inventory. 4-seat Ferrari just felt like the good thing. I don't have anything I can really take the kids around in, so that was a good idea. What else? I still have the 6-wheeled Range Rover from our Christmas special, the Oregon Trail one. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but it's just so cool,
Yeah. Oh man, it's crazy. All the different adventures you guys have gone on with those cars. It's very, very impressive. But, I love hearing about the behind-the-scenes stuff with a lot of those cars because obviously most people don't get to see it, but the back end of producing these things is always so much more insane than it is, like what people end up seeing. Like the reality of like shooting some of these things. People go, oh yeah, the guys are off-roading in snow. Meanwhile, you guys are actually doing that. It's not stunt doubles. Production is freezing their ass off and nobody wants to be there. And we're all trying to just get the shots and get out. And people don't realize it's hell, but you do it for the love of the art sometimes. It's always fun.
And we have a team, Side B Productions, that's based out of Dallas that helps us mostly with the capture. And then we have a company called Bright Bay Creative, and they do a lot of proper Motor Trend or Discovery Channel shows.
Nice.
And they do most of the post-production and editing because we're not capable of that if you haven't seen the rest of our content.
It's so time consuming.
Oh, exactly.
The thing is with doing Savage Garage over the years, a lot of times when we went on the rallies and we would have multiple cameras, and it wasn't like legitimate camera operators. These are, I shot some shit on my phone. Let me send you all the clips, and I'm going through 40 gigabytes of footage, and like maybe one clip is usable. But you look for that one clip because you never know what's going to be a title and thumbnail.
That's right.
And you have all these different cameras. When we would have Golden Peaks with their camera car and stuff, you have literally, hours upon hours upon hours of footage from all these different cameras. And someone's got to go through it. Someone's got to do selects on it. Somebody's got to turn this shit into an actual video that is digestible.
And that's the thing is that, when you think about how long it takes per minute of end product footage, this is insane. But we shoot, 20 hours a day sometimes.
Absolutely.
And, that's not something you can do if Netflix is funding it and you have to play by their rules. And so we've known that we can shoot 6 episodes in 10 days. 10 brutal days. And fortunately, it's enough fun. But people see it and they see a storyline come together, but you can't exactly shoot that way. It's all absolutely what happened. But for instance, in Car Trek 9, Freddie didn't know there was a turn on a racetrack hill, and he launched his McLaren about 70 feet in the air and landed. And I knew this was a risk based on the layout of Thunder Hill Raceway. And so I had told our production crew, I was like, look, when he goes out, even on a sighting lap, he may go off big. So let's make sure we have some cameras on it. Well,
absolutely.
I told him that twice, and the only thing we had was a drone shot.
Oh, no.
It's a great drone shot.
Okay. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we have to have like in-car to explain the story. And so people thought it was CGI because we really... He didn't do a great job of recreating the drama of how freaked out he was.
Well, we're not actors.
Exactly. Exactly. And I remember we were shooting out in Vegas for Car Trek 2. We rewrote the storyline every night because we go into it with an idea. All right, these are the kind of challenges that we're going to orchestrate, and this is kind of how it's going to work.
And then shit would happen, right?
And then we would break all the cars, and we'd have to bubble gum them together at night, and we had no idea, and we had to replace the Maserati for an episode because it was just too broken for the next day. And fortunately, we brought a backup car that time, and it was an M6. And so, yeah, it's been such a wild ride. And I think, over the course of 3 years doing 10 of these kind of challenge adventures, it's going to take a few years for me to be away from it, to look back on it and even remember all the minutia of all the things that we did, because it was so special and so meaningful. And no, it's not the most profitable thing in the world. Like you say, we're investing everything we possibly can into making it, the best thing it can be. And sometimes you get stuck owning a $80,000 six-wheeled Range Rover at the end of it. But it's all worth it. It's all fun. And again, there's the chance to do it. Absolutely. Is the gift of it all.
Yeah. The, oh man, that's a great story. That's great set of clips there.
What's your favorite flavor of Dorito?
Oh, he's been telling me he wants to ask you this.
This is rapid fire. Favorite flavor of Dorito?
Cool Ranch.
Okay. He
said it. He wanted to hear it.
I knew you were a Cool Ranch guy. Don't worry. All right. What's your go-to drink?
Flavored fizzy water.
Okay. All right. You put your socks on left, right, or right, left?
Left, right.
Oh, see, these are the questions that these people want to know.
No hesitation.
All right, well, that's it. That's all I got for my rapid fire.
It would have taken me a minute, and I probably would have given you a way too long of an explanation, too. So thank you for doing that.
That's all we need. That's a 20-second clip right there.
Yeah. YouTube Shorts.
Yeah, yes!
That's where it's all going. It's all going to be over. Tell you what, let's go even before VINWiki. I've heard a few times how VINWiki got started, but for those who are watching who have no clue, what was the dawn of VINWiki? How did that get started?
VINWiki grew out of a couple of things that I had done personally in car ownership long before we started the app, which was before we started the YouTube channel. So I used to keep a list of all the VINs of all the cars that I'd owned through the exotic car rental company that I had in college, and just the weird cars that I'd bought and sold personally on my website, just edbolian.com. And so when people would buy them later, they would Google their VINs and they would find me and they'd tell me what happened to them. And so I found out that one of my Range Rovers had gotten exported to somewhere in Europe, and one of the first rental Gallardo got sent to Hong Kong. One of the Ferraris got crashed. One of the Land Rover Discoveries I had was in Puerto Rico. So it was really fun to be able to kind of zoom out beyond my own time of ownership with a car and see what was happening to it. I had also done a lot of work to document the rarity of manual transmission LP640s. It was my personal favorite car. I had used all my credit and credit cards to buy a really nice one. And I knew they were more rare than anybody thought, but nobody really knew, including the factory. They had no idea. Literally a month ago, we finally got the full VIN list of all Mercies from the factory.
You were the one who spiked the market.
I appreciate
and I don't say that as a bad thing, because it was going to happen one way or another, because someone was going to figure out that these cars were rare, and there was only 26 of them made or something.
That was the first number we have. There's 32.
Okay.
And so in the U.S. and then there's 88 coupes worldwide and 16 roadsters worldwide.
And you've got one of the 16.
I do. Yeah, the worst one, which is always my preference.
Yeah, it's on brand. But
that's it.
The thing is, though, with that being said, though, about that Mercy, because I saw initially when you bought it, I saw the video that Tamarian did on it talking about the thing. And I'm looking at this like, Tamara, like, why are you bashing this car so much about how it's not perfect? I know it's not curated perfect, but dude, that's a manual LP640. It sounds great. You know, it looks good. And I mean, that's an awesome driver's car. You can drive that.
Everywhere. You know? Yep. I'll drive it today. And that's the thing about the car is I bought it, and the reassignments on the back of the title, I think there were 4 dealers involved. So Tamarian got offered it through a wholesaler.
Yeah.
He's like, Ed, obviously I don't want this car. Do you want it? So I agreed to buy it. And then it was literally maybe a week later that the development Chiron idea became available. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm not taking this thing.
Yeah.
But so many dealers had said no to that car at very, very low numbers, even for an E-Gear car today.
Wow,
and the last one to sell was $1.3 million.
Jeez.
And so that's the great thing. Is like, I don't have a lot of money to invest in all of these things, but I've been able to buy them before they went up. And I appreciate that you said spiked the market rather than manipulate the market. Those are very different words. And
I don't think that's what you did, because as I said, like it was going to happen at some point, because, you know, if something is valuable, eventually someone's going to figure it out. But like those cars, like even when like I mentioned earlier, when I bought my car, I'm looking at it like, you know, I know it's not a gated car. I know that is, you know, the desired thing, but the Murcies in their E-Gear form, I've really grown to love the mechanical feeling of the car, putting it all in to do what it's doing. So like that for me, like I didn't want a gated car. I wanted an E-Gear car. And even when I looked at it, I'm like, you know, in 10 years, or maybe not 10, or like 10 to 15 years, I probably won't be able to get one. You know, or maybe not. I mean, it's just like I don't see myself, like, or at least I won't be able to. What's it called? I won't be able to forgive myself for spending money on it, because like if I find out one day that my old E-Gear car ends up being $500,000, I'm gonna be very upset. You know,
I have had those moments.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, get it while you can kind of thing.
Exactly. And I couldn't buy them at today's money either. And so that's the great thing. And you're right about what the paddle shift cars represent as being so of the moment. And so like my SV is E-Gear, obviously, because of the 44 US cars, only 3 of them are manual, and they're worth $3, $4, or $5 million today. And so this car, but I love it for how cool it was at the time that the car was the biggest, baddest, coolest thing that I could dream for. And so the fact that, no, it's still an excuse you kind of have to make to a passenger that's in the car is, it just shifts like that, don't worry about it. But it still makes me feel a totally different way than the timelessness of the manual cars, which I definitely love.
Either way, with respect to, you know, the car, I'd like to ask you about some of your sales with Lamborghini Atlanta, even before VINWiki. What were some of the standout moments of your car selling career? You know, like, or any interesting stories with I'll be honest with you, I have watched virtually every single Lamborghini selling story that's on VINWiki. You know, is there anything that people haven't heard yet?
Exclusive.
Maybe? Oh man, there were some that we didn't talk.
The Jermaine
about.
Dupri one was very good. Yeah, I loved that one.
Yeah, we had to repossess Jermaine Dupri's Mercy. Man, that car was so weird. They had to decide. You're familiar with the maintenance of V12 Lamborghinis.
Fun, yeah.
And what has to happen in order to access the clutch?
The engine has to come out.
Unless
transmission.
You cut the frame.
What?
And some of his mastermind mechanics had decided that was the right approach.
I want to know what shop thought that was a good idea. I would love to know.
You know what I mean? You know, they're like, we have solved the world's problems right now, and with a few welds, you'll never know, right? That was not true. And of course, Mercy Roadsters are pretty flimsy anyway.
Yeah.
And that car had been like repainted to balloon white. That was... Like, I think you probably bought like the last cheap Mercy, but I've bought a lot of cheap Mercies over the years, and that one was definitely when I sold it 3 or 4 times. We had the Invincible test drive guy. That was
I remember that story. Yeah,
that was a 2012 Performante, and this guy came in claiming that he had started some tech company, which was absolutely a lie. And he was married to some tennis player or something like that, and he nearly got shot by one of my coworkers who had a lot of firearms within reach at the time of their altercation, but it became my up after that. And I was like, this guy's not going to buy a car, but they insisted that I let him test drive this car, my boss and the general manager, who had all stepped into the situation. And, you know, very seldom did somebody abuse the privilege of getting to test drive a car. We do a lot of pre-qualification. You are ready to imminently buy this car in the event that we let you test drive it, especially if it's a brand new car.
Absolutely.
And we had that car because, that car might have been going to be exported when we took it as an allocation, and then the guy stopped exporting cars because of a currency issue. But we had it in inventory. We did need to sell this thing, so they told me to let him drive it.
Yeah.
And so I drive the first half, he drives the second half, and he goes nuts. And I'm like, sir, you're going to have to slow down. This is absolutely not okay. He's 130, 40, 50 miles an hour on our local highway.
Jesus Christ.
And there's a lot of police patrolling in that area. And we knew and loved them all, that we were on very, very good terms with the cops. And I was like, all right, great. He's going to pass that cop. And the guy, hopefully he'll be arrested, maybe even shot. And at least he'll stop being my problem.
Yeah.
And so he blows past this cop, and the cop doesn't bat an eye. Probably because he thought I was driving, which I would have usually gotten away with. In
Georgia, like, you guys don't have a no chase law. Like, your cops, the videos I've seen online, your cops scare me. I'm not speeding in Georgia.
It's worth being concerned about. And so I look back at the cop, like, what are you doing? Arrest this guy. Yeah. And he looks at me and he goes, I am invincible. And I said, well, I'm not. Can we slow down? And we finally get off the road, and I take the key out as soon as he parks it. I'm like, all right, would you like me to draw the paperwork up? And of course he's like, let me think about it.
Of course.
Gee, thanks, man. And we didn't see him again.
Oh my God.
That's got to be terrifying.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, but it kind of goes with the territory, and it was a good thing. I sold cars for 6 years. I was the director of sales for Lamborghini, McLaren, Aston Martin, and Lotus Atlanta. And it was in the early days of McLaren, so we became a dealer in the second round. There were 7 dealers at first. We were in kind of the next round of 10, and so we got 12 Cs were stale inventory, and the 650 had already been announced, and the 570 was coming so fast, and it was just crazy. But I learned a lot. I came away with a lot of good stories to tell, and survived it, of all things.
Yeah, Mike.
Survived. That's
what do you think was one of the best? I mean, I love your story of how you got to drive a Murcielago for the first time. That's one of my favorites. You came up with, what was it? Something about reptiles. Selling reptiles.
That was my first business in middle school. Was breeding albino iguanas in my parents' basement, and so I couldn't drive one locally, but I could.
Oh, so you went outside?
I went to Carolina.
So nobody would. Okay. Very nice.
If I'm going to drive 4 or 5 hours to test drive your car, they think you're real serious. And so, I went up there, and because the Murci came out. I was born in '85. It came out in '01. Set the fastest time for the 100 miles, 100 kilometers, and fastest driven or furthest distance driven in an hour. So when I was 16 years old. So there's something about the coolest cars from when you're 13 to 20 that nothing can ever be cooler than that, right? And so I just was enamored immediately with the Murci because it was everything that was cool about a Countach and a Diablo kind of put in a modern enough context to rely on.
Absolutely,
and so I of course, I was not remotely in a position to buy one, but I was able to convince him that I might be enough to get him to let me drive one. And it was just incredible. I remember coming over a hill in this. It was a Rosso Andromeda 2003 car, I think it was, and there was a bicyclist in the middle of our lane on this backcountry Carolinas road, lock up the brakes, slide around this guy. There's a dump truck driving the other way, of course, and I managed to not hit it. And the guy's like, all right, which as fate would have it, I would be that guy a few short years later. We'll slow it down for a little bit. And of course, I obliged. I didn't let him know that I was invincible, even though I probably thought it at the time. But it doesn't get any cooler.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're getting close to, I know, the time that you need to get going.
I'm glad y'all came.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you, being on the podcast. But I mean, with all that, I mean, thank you for thank you for having us. I've said that a couple times already today. Inviting us into your VINWiki set. But also thank you for being one of the, what feels like to me anyway, one of the last creators that is providing, I guess, high quality content. Like, thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for keeping that going. Because, I think people that provide content like that, it's going to disappear, at least on social media. I hope not anytime soon. But thank you for continuing to do that, because like for people like me that appreciate the stuff, the people that have produced things like that, or been a part of productions like that, it makes me very happy. And I love watching it because I know what goes into it, and I really do appreciate it and support it. So with that, folks, check out VINWiki if you haven't already. I'd be surprised if you weren't subscribed to him. But with all that, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out our merch store. And with that, stay savage.